Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your regular geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond, it's DL. What up, DL?
Hey, Tommy. How are you?
Coming across the airwaves.
Yeah, that's true. I'm coming to you from a dirty apartment in Melbourne.
A dirty apartment? Bloody hell.
Sorry, not apartment, hotel room. That sounded weirder.
Sounds really, seedy's the word I'm looking for. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what state it is. Don't tell your partner.
Yeah, no, just a work trip, right? Clothes everywhere. I keep putting off housekeeping, so you know how they like tend to fix things up a bit. That just hasn't happened.
It's chaos. Do you feel in control?
Yeah, I may have a sauna later though. It's getting wild.
Damn.
It's getting wild over here at the Intercontinental.
Oh, fancy pants. Look at this guy. Your company's putting up the big bucks.
Is that a fancy one?
Nah, it's not. It's all right. I like it though. When a hotel's got a sauna, I always feel like it just puts it up that one extra level, you know? There's a difference between just having a gym and having a gym and sauna. And you're like, oh yeah, that's got an extra.
Yes. Well, they have a proper pool. They have a spa.
You're questioning.
I don't know why
you're
they call
questioning
it a spa.
if it's a fancy hotel. This guy.
I think those are just like kind of, normal parts of the hotel experience, mate.
Depends on where you go, man. I've been to some hotels in the States that were pretty bare basic.
Yeah, I don't think so. It wasn't a hotel. It was like a Holiday Inn. Very different things.
Yeah, it was a motel. There's a song in there somewhere. Hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. All right, guys. There will be time codes in the description if you guys want to skip us singing classic Cassidy songs featuring R. Kelly. You can either skip around. We do a bit of what we've been up to. We do a bit of the news, and then we're going to jump into our main topic, which today I'm really excited for, DL. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. It's different than our typical go-to, or at least the way we've been spending our time bantering as of late. So
look, it's been a pretty hectic season for movies, so it's nice to do something just a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
And we haven't done a video game episode in for so long.
That is true. It's been a minute. It's been a bit. So we're getting into a video game. It's not a traditional video game episode.
No, and we'll talk about that when we get there, even though you've probably read the title already. What have you been up to this week, DL?
Oh, you beat me. What have I been up to? Honestly, man, not that much. This is why I was actually thinking about this. I finished all my content. And now I'm like, okay, what do I do?
And you should go back and listen to some of our episodes. There's some fire content for you to get into in there.
I know. I literally need to think about my own recommendations or your own. But this week, what did I do? One day I was, really, really behind on expense reports. Right? Like we're talking like multiple
geeky stuff. DL,
months.
Come on, help me out here.
Like 3 to 4 months behind. And so I spent an entire afternoon and evening doing that. And I was like, what do I do? What do I want to put on while I do this? Went to Netflix, looked at all the Westerns, I just searched Western, had seen 90% of them. So basically there was like 2 left that I hadn't seen. So I just watched one of the ones that I hadn't seen. It was terribly rated, but I had to get through it. It's called The Quick and the Dead. I didn't actually get through it. I tried. It has Leo in it and Russell Crowe. It's like it's a bunch of famous actors. Sharon Stone, but just a bad movie.
Oh, really? That's some pretty A-list actors right there.
Yeah, well, it was when he was little. It was
I was gonna ask, how old is Leo in it? Because there's some of his younger movies when he's not that special.
Well, I mean, he's just trying to get big at that point. He's just taking whatever film I think he could get, right? The Tracker is another movie. So I burned through that one. I was like, this is boring. Got halfway through. The Quick and the Dead was about this town that gets taken over by an outlaw, and instead of him being outlaw-y, he does a shooting contest every year to kill his enemy. The whole premise is ridiculous. To kill his enemies honorably.
Sounds like borderline Robin Hood.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And anyway, I stopped watching. The other one was a little bit more interesting. The Tracker. It's like an Aussie kind of art house flick.
Oh,
that's
nice.
a Western where it's like this Aboriginal tracker set in the 1920s. He's helping this other Aussie guy track down apparently an Aboriginal that raped a woman.
Ah.
We don't know if that's true. We don't, you're just thrown into the setting of this Aboriginal tracker and his military counterparts that are obviously quite racist, and there's some racist stuff going on, and it's a pretty interesting story.
I was gonna say, it sounds like there's gonna be plenty of bias involved.
Yes, there was, but it was cool to like see, a Western and an Australian setting in the outback. I love the outback.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of.
It sounds like one that could be
just the whole
really well,
vibe.
could have a really good twist at the end, whereby if like it turned out they were just trying to kill some racists, like the whole point was they'd taken them on this jaunt so they could get them, like isolated somewhere in the outback and then just kill them.
Well, there's you're not far off, but there is twists, but it's not that exact twist. But it was overall a good, if a bit boring, but when you're doing like fucking
you want to be
expenses
more,
and you want it
more
in the
bored
background.
while you do expense
Yeah, you
reports.
don't need. Well, you don't need something distracting, right? Because expenses are pretty fucking boring, so you don't want to be.
See. You were trying to keep yourself in the zone.
I wanted to get him done. It had been long enough. How about you, man? What have you been up to?
Well, it's funny you say you turned something off, because speaking of that, I flicked on a new, and I'm going to use massive quotation marks here, the new comedy vehicle for Mike Myers on Netflix. It's called The Pentaveret. And it came up and they were like, it was everywhere. It was being advertised. It was on all my lists, the ones that are like, for you, or
I haven't even
new in
heard of it.
comedy. It's a show.
On Netflix.
Yeah, so effectively what it is it's this group of 5 individuals like the Illuminati who run the world, except they're nice. Nice. And I watched one episode and I turned it off. It's fucking awful. It was really hard to watch. Like, it's just nonsense. I was like, this is just Mike Myers wearing different outfits, being post Austin Powers Mike Myers, which is bad.
I just wonder. I just wonder if it was always bad and we just got tired of it.
I thought Austin Powers was good. I enjoyed Austin Powers. That was a good film. It was a good satire for the time. Like, if you think about it, no one satired those films at the time.
I haven't seen it in a long time, and I just wonder if it holds up. But maybe it does. Point being, maybe I don't think he's gotten worse. I just think that concept of him playing the same dude constantly might be novel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, I did watch some pretty good things actually this week. One of the things that I was actually doing a bit of Twitter glancing while I was looking around, and I heard that the most recent Guy Ritchie movie called Wrath of Men, it's a bit of a sleeper hit apparently. So I was looking through, and a lot of people were saying, why are people sleeping on this? Like, it's really good, it's really different. So I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. And outside of that middle section where he did like Aladdin, I like Guy Ritchie for the most part.
I just forgot that he did Aladdin.
I think you just strike it from your brain. Like, I don't remember that.
Well, I mean, he probably got paid a lot.
Yeah, well, that's
to be fair.
absolutely
like,
why he did.
Probably do it too.
But like this Guy Ritchie movie, it's kind of back to the old Guy Ritchie. Like, it's crazy. It released under the radar a little bit, 2021. Like I say, it's had a recent like groundswell of goodwill. It's got so many dark twists. Brings back the classic like hard man action figure type person, action star, without it being like necessarily what you expect. It's got some really nice subversions of tropes. I liked it a lot.
I actually haven't even heard of it. That's why I'm like, how have I not heard of it?
I'm real surprised. They advertised it everywhere for like a week. It was on all bus stops, all train stops, everything. And then it just disappeared. Yeah, it just disappeared. They dropped it in COVID, so like no one would have gone to the cinema to see it. Like, but it's good. I think you'll enjoy it. It's Jason Statham. So for me, immediately I was like, I find him a little bit one-dimensional.
Well, and he's always in every one of his movies.
He really is, and it
doesn't help Guy Ritchie have some diversity.
But like I say, it goes back to the action hard man, action star somewhat. But when you get to the end of it, you'll understand what I mean. Like, it really does quite a good job of subverting certain tropes from that genre.
Okay, I'm in, man.
I recommend.
I'm game.
And the other thing I did this week was I listened to a new fun podcast. Not new at all. It's a really old podcast, but one I've just come back around to listening to, and it's called Things You Should Know. Now, this is a podcast which sort of like fills in all sorts of random knowledge gaps. And it's a bit of a morbid recommendation, but I definitely recommend you listening to it because it's so interesting. It's about the disappearance of that flight MH370. You know, the Malaysia Airlines flight that just vanished?
Mate, I've already researched the shit out of this because
So
I'm like weird about
interesting.
flight stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think I think everything they'll have to tell me I'll already know, unless there's been some major updates.
No, you
in the
might have
last
seen it all, but
couple of years.
from my side,
Yeah.
I was so interested by it all. It's 2 parts. It just dives into detail on a lot of the people who were on the flight and circumstances around the flight as well. And I just really liked it, man. It was super interesting.
Yeah, well, it's just the crazy thing about that is that the world is still so big that they've only found pieces of this fucking plane years out. Like it's wild.
So you're a big conspiracy theorist then? Would you do well on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Conspiracy theorist. It's not a conspiracy that the motherfucker went down. They haven't found it.
This dives into some of the conspiracy theories around it as well about who.
Well, there are like about the pilot and stuff for sure. There's a bunch of
them. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go into it. I think you should check it out. Like, I think you'd like it. It sounds like it's on your radar.
I am a big Rogan fan. Doesn't mean I like conspiracy theories. But
Seth Rogen.
He's
Seth's all right. I liked Paul.
Joe. Big Joe.
Did anyone actually watch Paul with Shaun of the Dead guys, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg?
No.
Bad film. Don't watch it. But it's
Is that a Joe Rogan film?
Joe Rogan? Seth Rogen.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Joe Rogan. Seth Rogen. I mean, I've seen plenty of his stuff, but not in a while.
Not for a while. He was. We were talking about Superbad last week, and I couldn't remember his name for life. And he's one of the cops, right?
Yeah, he's really good.
He's in everything. That guy.
As the cop. He hasn't been in anything like proper funny. He's done like these weird dramas.
I think he
recently.
does a direct.
Like that one on Netflix about a pickle.
Oh, really?
Look at every time I see it, I'm like, am I gonna watch this? No, but am I intrigued to see what the fuck he's made? It's yes. It's like this guy who goes back in time as like I don't know. The trailer shows like him as like a old, maybe he's even Amish. I don't know. Like, and he's moved from Brooklyn, New York, of the like his era, and he's like imported into the real era. I saw that. Or the modern era. And I was like, what? How high were you when you thought of this? And he's like selling pickles.
When you said that, I thought you meant my brain instantly jumped to like, you remember that Sausage Party movie that they clearly equally.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, where they were all hot dogs.
You said he was a pickle.
I would actually be down to watch that. I didn't say he was a pickle. I said he had pickles. Did I say he was a pickle?
I think you said he was a pickle.
He's a pickle.
One is a pickle. One is a hot dog.
He flies back in time as a pickle.
What on earth are we talking about?
That'd be a tough sell for me, man. That movie.
Look, going back to conspiracy theories, Seth and Joe Rogan can do one. You should definitely listen to this podcast. Things you should know.
Oh no, going back to actually, can I shimmy my way into? Unless you've got a couple more things you want to talk about that you've seen.
No, please.
Speaking of conspiracy theories, weird news
it's back, baby.
Is back.
Pew, pew, pew.
Since the Pentagon has announced that they have a investigative committee for UFOs, right? Because they did that last year. I don't know. I think this was a weird news, I think, from many a podcast ago that I dropped. Since then, there's been more than double the reported sightings.
Wow.
Now, some would say that's because people now want some attention and they know this place is here and they're got a place to voice their opinions and way too much time on their hand. Others would say, others still would say that there's a lot of fuckery afoot. And the UFOs are really like, what's going on with these guys, man? Ukraine, all this stuff. They need to check in and make sure we're not going to blow ourselves up. So thank you for checking in on us, UFOs. Tell Tom DeLong I say hi. And
yeah. Please don't anal probe
That's
me.
the end of the weird news segment.
I feel like...
Yeah, please don't.
I feel like aliens... I saw a great meme that was... I mean, everyone's seen it by now, but the point where it was like, aliens would see us now and be like, I think I'll skip this season. I don't want to be involved in this one.
What is that? Do you remember that that little like it was like a E-Bombs World?
Oh yeah, I loved E-Bombs World.
It still might exist.
It does. Do you remember the end of the world video?
That's what I was gonna say. And it's like then the friends are like, fire the missiles and then take a nap. Or take a nap and then fire the missiles. And then it's like the comments like fuck that. Like that's exactly what the UFOs would be like. They'd be like, fuck that.
Really
it's
showing
like heading
our
to
age.
Earth. No, fuck that. Yeah. That was a proper video.
That was before viral
early
videos.
2000s.
That was seriously viral. I wonder when.
That was like one of the first viral videos. Beyond there's that one. There's Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah. What year do you think The End of the World came out?
I would have been grade school at some time. Like
That doesn't help the listeners.
Past AOL dial-up into DSL.
Well, it was
Like whenever DSL was invented and implemented at wide scale to consumers is probably around the same time when End of Z World was produced, I'm guessing.
Well, interestingly, the E-Bounds World article with it on is 2016. That is incorrect. Although there is one from all the way back in 2006. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was saying mid 2000.
That's impressive. Oh man.
Tens.
Oh no, sorry. Hang on a minute. I'm gonna. I'll rewind all that back. There's a Wikipedia article about it. That's what we need.
About this video.
This specific video called "End of the World" (brackets video).
Iconic.
End of the World, also known as End of Z World, was a flash animated viral video created by Jason Windsor of Albino Black Sheep in 2003. Oh my God!
Wow.
I know.
Just after Y2.
A copy of the animated video was uploaded to YouTube in 2008, approximately 14 million views. Bloody hell! I mean, like, unbelievable. What a weird time to be alive.
You know what's crazy?
No, hit me.
Back then, he probably made like no money.
He made £0, 0 pennies.
Now maybe he does because of YouTube, but like back then,
I reckon it's just been ripped and like it's been posted by a bunch of different people. He's not posted that.
Like he didn't trademark.
No,
it.
it's just it's just everyone's media now.
It's public.
Yeah,
domain.
exactly. That's the word. Public domain. Yeah.
End of Z World is public domain. Fuck, man,
so.
we are old. Anyway,
2003.
Leroy Jenkins. I hope Leroy
old.
Jenkins made some money.
It's nearly 20 years old.
Yeah, it's fucking
unreal,
dude. This is before we get into the proper news, we're on AOL and DSL, so I'm going to tell this story.
Please.
Have you heard about well, you probably wouldn't have because you live you're from London.
I'm not.
So
I'm not from London.
No, whatever. You're from the fucking.
I'm bringing my character back.
Anyway, you're not from London. I know that. We're good mates. I actually knew that. But that's just the phrase that they use in Get Him to the Greek, so I use it too.
All right.
It's a state project. The federal government puts it on, all, I guess, grade schools. I think it's like whatever grade it is, like 3rd or 4th grade. Maybe it's 5th grade, where you have to do a project on a state. You have to basically do some research on one of the states of
state of being, like
United States of America. No. Like you get it. One of the 50 odd states. 55. And you have to. I said 50 odd.
I said 55. I was like, fuck, you don't know anything about the states.
You pick one, and I had Nevada, and my mom was like all stoked that we had the AOL dial-up internet, and I was gonna be able to use the internet to like research for my state project. So I'm like, because traditionally we had like fucking all these encyclopedias that I'm sure some guy just went and sold her like door to door. Like that's what you had before the internet. Yeah. And so I was on there and I'm like, Nevada, and I'm doing my research, and eventually I come up to brothel. What is a brothel? Nevada is one of the only states in America that has like legal brothels, like one of like 2 or 3. And so I'm like Mom, what's a brothel? And that very quickly ended my first foray into the internet. My mom gave me quickly back the encyclopedias by asking an innocent question about the state of origin that I had
Nevada,
been tasked with investigating.
That's why you're so stumped as a human being.
Mate, it was like the 3rd line of Nevada's like mission statement.
we have free brothels.
They're not free, but they have them.
Yeah, sorry, free is the wrong way of looking at it. But look, talking about sandy, very sandy places. Love little segue there.
Yuck.
I love what I'm doing here. Nevada sandy, the world of Dune is sandy. That's what I'm going with, all right. Did you hear this week that Christopher Walken was cast in the new upcoming Dune Part 2 as the Emperor?
I did, and it's a good casting.
That's a fucking great casting. Honestly, man, I can't think of anyone better to that other than the guy from the original 1980s movie who's probably in his 90s himself now. But that, if they're not bringing the pugs back, Christopher Walken is the best person to do this.
I mean, there's like a lot of people that like probably could do it, but I just would not have thought of him. But now that they've selected him, I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
That's like a perfect cast. I think everyone in this movie is
Yeah.
like perfectly cast, to be perfectly honest. Do you like?
Yeah.
I just can't imagine him doing the voice. Like, you know how Walken talks.
You mean like with the what's the one? Your father. He put this watch in his asshole.
What's that from?
Pulp Fiction.
That's it. Oh my
In
god.
Vietnam, he put this watch in his took it out of his asshole. I don't know what it is.
I just got like his enunciation of stuff is just amazing. I wonder if he's gonna bring that attitude to the movie. He's just perfect for
He's
this.
gonna have to do something interesting, like because the Emperor is gonna be like this crazy. He's a fucking psychopath. You'd have to think
He is, but he's a
Anyway.
quiet psychopath. So I feel like Christopher Walken is that perfect mold. You know, like I can imagine Christopher
Yeah.
Walken going out and sort of murdering people on a weekend for fun and not reacting to it. You know.
Oh, totally. What did you think about the She-Hulk trailer?
Yeah, big news today. Actually, it dropped.
Because that was
Love to know
Yeah.
your thoughts.
kind of seemed fucking goofy as hell to me.
I don't know. I kind of liked it seeming goofy though. So like classically in the comics, She-Hulk is she's a little bit goofy. Like she can flip between Hulk and her alter ego, Jennifer Walters. She also breaks the fourth wall a lot like Deadpool does. So she talks to the audience. She knows she's in a comic book. So like probably not going to go that far in the show, but I like that they're making it a bit more goofy. And I mean, Mark Ruffalo is a goofy character as well.
It is a different vibe, but it's like it's a bit childy for me.
You
I'm
think?
like, oh. There was there was some interesting. I mean, I'll watch it. I think it looks more unique than like a
Big time.
Falco.
We're really hard on Falcon and Winter Soldier.
It
I
deservedly
liked it.
so.
We got a couple bits of correspondence about it, actually. A friend of the show, Matt, actually sent it over and said that he liked the tone of the trailer. So I'm excited to see that as well. Like, I think it's different. It's a bit unique. It's but in like a familiar way. So like we obviously know the Hulk. We know his backstory. She's a bit different in terms of she's a lawyer by day and a Hulk by the rest of the day. But it's also got like
yeah, and a Hulk by date.
Yeah.
She's like dating
Yeah.
people as the Hulk. Like, why would you choose your green form
mad. Well,
to date people?
I just like the fact it's got some characters returning as well. So Emil Blonsky, who's Abomination, we did get a glimpse of him in the Shang-Chi movie.
Yeah, you did.
But he's back, baby. He's bringing his shtick back to try and fight the world.
And fucking Wong is everywhere, man. He's all over Phase 4.
Wong, it's the phase of Wong, man. I told you he's the best character. Look, I'm excited for that. Like, it's not high up there on my list of things that I was like massively looking forward to. I like the tone. I think it's going to be tough to keep her green the whole time and huge because that's a lot of CGI budget. But man, why not? Like, let's see the Hulk dating.
I actually I think it'll be fine. It just seems it's going to be a bit more like childish, which is fine.
Childish or just like dumb humor?
Both.
Okay.
Like, it just not everything has to be like the next biggest drama of the world's ending.
That's so true.
But it does, yeah, which is totally
I'm down
fair.
for that. Well, anyway, speaking of the MCU, the social media guy Lockie actually posted on our Instagram page at Podcast Assemble for anyone who wants to find us. He posted about some of the leaked cut cameos from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, I'm going to quickly just...
I don't know if I want to know this. Is it going to ruin it for anything?
Probably not. No, I don't think so. I'm going to mention just a couple.
Okay.
So the one he posted about was that apparently Daniel Craig was signed on the dotted line to be a cameo as one of the Illuminati members as Thor's half-brother, Balder the Brave. Now, he's not someone we've seen in the MCU. He is in the comics a little bit. He would probably just be their world's version of Thor, I assume, because he's just that sort of character. But Daniel Craig in the MCU, like, what?
It would be cool. It makes you wonder, though. It does make you wonder, and spoilers to Doctor Strange, if all those other people, like the fact that he was such a cursory cast that didn't happen.
Well,
like, is John Krasinski, like, is he actually gonna not? He's gonna be the same. Like, he won't actually be the Fantastic Four.
Well, interestingly, Daniel Craig, the only reason he didn't go was because at the time they were filming it, the COVID cases started to spike where they were filming, and he didn't want to be bringing COVID back to his family and the community. So he was. I mean, from my perspective, I think that's a good shout. Why would you? But there was another one that was actually apparently cut and was apparently filmed, which is Michael Fassbender as Magneto. Now, that's super interesting because in many of the comics, in many of the stories, he is not only the Master of Metal, he's also Wanda's father.
Yeah, they've said that a lot in the comics, and I just don't see how that's gonna
No.
happen in this.
If you have the Wanda's father version of Magneto, he'd have to be significantly older than Michael Fassbender. I feel like he's probably the wrong age.
Yeah, true.
But that would be cool, man. I'd love to see him come back. Like, they obviously starting to flirt with the X-Men here and there, just sort of giving you little hints that maybe they're around. Why not bring Fassbender in?
You're right. They have been giving you those hints. Do you think those kick in like this phase or like the end of the third phase of this phase? Or sorry, like phase 6.
All right, so you mean
End of...
I think we'll get something in the 5th phase. Whether that's a character arriving in a separate movie. What I'd love to see is, well, one thing that they sort of started to do a little bit was sort of like buddy up movies almost, like they did Thor and the Hulk, in Ragnarok, which was a really great one. I could imagine them doing like sort of a buddy up movie and just one of them being one of the mutants, and it's sort of like that's how they're almost introduced. And then you learn more about it in subsequent movies. I can't imagine that's how it's going to be. Like, X-Men's such a huge property. They'll probably just go, here's Wolverine, and this is the X-Men, But
are we getting a new Wolverine is the question.
You would assume. I don't think Hugh Jackman's going to come back at this point. He's out. He said he's done.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? He's too perfect. I can't deal with that man. Like, stop it.
Well, I just can't see anyone else pulling it off. But anyway.
Well, there's so many rumors about different people's, like Daniel Radcliffe. I'd hate that. I don't like him in that role.
Are you?
And also English.
You've got. That is not a rumor.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a rumor for a while.
No one would ever expect that to be a thing.
Look, I'm excited to see where the X-Men come in. Fantastic Four is obviously going to be first. We know that. That's on the list of movies now. It's not Untitled anymore. It's on the list. So we know that's coming. In fact, you know what? You guys let us know how you think the X-Men are going to come to the franchise. Hit us up at Podcast Assemble, tag us in a post, or send us a direct message. We will read it out next week on the show if you hit us up.
We will find you.
A couple of other bits of news very quickly. Did you also hear this week that Black Mirror Season 6 is in the works? Now, this was a show that was assumed to be pretty much done. Charlie Brooker looked like he was not wanting to come back to the series, and we actually called it Dark Mirror at least 3 times last week. So at least this week we get the name
Shows
right.
you that I've seen a lot of it. Yeah.
No. Look, I you know what, I'd watch more of it. It's something you've got to really steel yourself for, in my opinion. And final bit of news from my side. Did you also see the new trailer for The Boys? Now, this is really ramping up. The show's coming out in just under a month. I'm probably going to stop watching trailers now because this actually gives away maybe slightly more than I wanted to know. But man, it looks cool.
What? Come on. No, the first one gave up just as much.
Oh, this gives away a fair amount about Huey and where he's at in the world.
Oh, that's true. There was a new Huey stuff, but you know that's going to be in the first episode.
Probably, but like, I mean, that's the joy of this
For
series.
sure, yeah.
I feel like I think it's going to go a direction, and then it just completely like sideswipes me every time.
No, fair enough. I'm super excited for this one.
What do you think about Anthony Starr's Homelander looking more and more unhinged?
Mate, he's always been fucking crazy. It just seems like what they're going to do is they're going to make it like okay to be crazy in the mainstream media, the same way it has kind of become that now, where like you can just be ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, I mean, everyone is.
And absurd, and it's accepted by certain, media conglomerates and the like. I can't wait for it, man. It's going to be good. Did you see the kind of all the news drop about Stranger Things?
No, I don't want to know.
I'm not spoiling anything, but it's apparently like 2 different seasons.
Yeah, it's split into
like in one almost. Yeah. They're making it part 1, part 2, and it's like 5 hours longer than the last season with the same amount of episodes. A couple of the episodes are like literally a bit longer than movies.
That's awesome.
So you hope that it's good stuff. You hope they're not just.
Well, I didn't mention it in my what I've been up to, but we have been powering through. We're probably 9. Is it 9 or 10 the second season? We basically got 1 episode of the second season left. So there is still hope that we'll get through it before season 4 comes out.
I do need to rewatch the 3rd.
My partner loves to binge. She loves a binge, man. She will literally sit there and just episode after episode after episode. Whereas I'm like, I quite like yourself. If I watch a good episode of something, I quite like giving it a moment, sitting back, letting it marinate a little bit.
Settle.
Yeah, exactly. Where she's just like, get the next episode on. She's like a junkie, man.
Yeah, I got to rewatch season 3 because I don't really remember it all that well.
Right.
So I'll rewatch that. But no, they talked a lot about it. They've released a lot of information. Apparently, they're calling it's more like Game of Thrones, meaning like it's like the stories are sprawling, which I thought was a bit much to say. But
Hopper's in Russia or some shit now, isn't he?
yeah, and I think they hinted that the kids moved in the last. I think didn't they move in the last?
So
episode?
yeah, Joyce Byers and co. all moved out of What's it? Not Hopkins, New York. That's the wrong name. Out of the
Indiana.
Yeah, Hawkins.
Yeah, and so there's some people still in Indiana. There's some people in Russia. There's some people wherever they moved. Right. So there's a lot going on.
So many spots. And also, I'm surprised Elle went with that family. I mean, I'm not, because they needed to move her out of Hawkins, just because, she's pretty famous and also can kill people with her mind. But also, like, she is still going out with Mike, right? Like, at the end of the season. So I'm like, oh, that's a bit harsh.
I will rewatch and report back.
Lovely. Well, let us know what you guys have heard. We love it when you hit us up with news like friend of the show Matt did this week. Thank you very much, friend of the show Matt. And also send us memes, guys. We love it when you send us memes. Tag us in a post or send us it direct. We are at Podcast Assemble on Instagram. Do you want to preface the main topic this week, DL?
This week, we're doing something a bit different. With all the delays and changes in direction, we never thought we'd get to see Obi-Wan Kenobi come to our screens. However, the series is right around the corner, so we thought it might be fun to touch on something a bit Star Wars-y. And so today, we are going to talk about, much similar to what we thought about Obi-Wan, where we would never kind of see this show. Video games of the Star Wars universe that you actually will never get to see. So it's a big cock tease.
Yeah, we're flip reversing the script. Man, like, I've wanted to do a video game episode for a while, and I thought this was such an interesting topic. There's a bunch of media out there on different Star Wars video games, which almost happened. But firstly, what I'd love to do is just ask you what your experience of playing Star Wars games growing up was. And what games stand out? Yeah,
totally. And it was actually shocking as I was doing more research how many games were like not made, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
crazy.
But it's like absurd. It's like such a waste of effort and time and money for so many people. You kind of just feel bad for them.
Absolutely. Yes. Devastated.
But no, I did play a few of them. More recently, really liked the Battlefront games when I was like a kid. Those were super cool.
The original Battlefront games, the OGs, not the new ones.
The original ones. So I really enjoyed those. And then there was also like a Boba Fett game on the GameCube.
Really? Now that's
a bounty
fun.
hunter game that I played at some point. It wasn't even mine because I never owned a GameCube, but I played it at somebody's house. It was pretty cool.
Tell me about that. I'm intrigued.
Dude, it's just like you're Boba Fett and you like you just chase people down.
That's sick.
Like each level is you like, it's almost like Assassin, Hitman, that game.
Oh, nice.
Except and some of them you have to like kill, some of them you have to take alive. Or, if you do that, it changes the outcome. What's another one, man? There was this one that I forgot on like the N64. It was called like Han Solo's like look-alike brother or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. Go on.
I forget what it's called, but you play this guy who like at some point like wins the Millennium Falcon in a bet, but then loses it, and you play as him before he's lost it, and he kind of looks like Han Solo.
I think this is Shadows of the Empire you're talking about.
Yes, Shadows of the Empire.
Which I believe is a tie-in to a three-pronged series that is now apparently legend, so isn't actually part of the canon anymore. But essentially, they were trying to expand the canon of the time. And I believe they had comics, they had full books, and they had a video game as well. So essentially, just trying to sell shit to kids. And yeah, you basically are...
Well, it works.
Yeah, it bloody worked really well. I'm trying to remember what the main... Dash Render was the main character.
Dash Rendar. What a name.
What an awesome game.
There was a speeder level that was quite fun.
He was literally just Han Solo, wasn't he? There's... At the end of the game, spoilers for this game from 1997, I believe he dies, but... There is an alternate ending in one of the canons, probably Legends, where he's actually still alive and he faked his death.
Yeah, there's even in that, like depending on what you do, like if you beat it a certain way, you get that ending.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, mine's a little bit different. Like I've played a few of the sort of like more mainstream games growing up, but my absolute favorite all-time memory of Star Wars video games is So me and my brother, we used to play a lot of really shit games on like the PC growing up because we were like thought we were so ahead of the curve. We had like this crap PC that we'd play on all the time. And we had a game called Star Wars Rebel Assault from 1993. Now, it was like an on-rail shooter. The graphics were absolutely abysmal, but it was published by LucasArts. It digitized features of the actual footage from the movies. So you felt like you were playing like parts of the game. But like honestly, I found it the day and I sent it to my brother just as like a bit of banter. And I watched a little bit of it. And some of the scenes that they digitize in quotation marks, they're horrendous. They literally get the faces and like force them to move. It's the weirdest fucking nightmare fuel, I'll tell you now. But the game was a lot of fun, and I remember it just being horribly difficult. And it sort of culminated in you blowing up the Death Star in this on rails flight simulator thing. It was so much fun, and I just remember, when you're a kid and you're always, I mean, maybe you don't think you've got older brothers, but I always used to be like, I couldn't get past a certain bit, and I'd be like, Matt, do this bit for me, and he'd always have to jump in and do it. It was like the perfect nostalgia game, shall we say. But like the Star Wars license is a really interesting thing in video games in general.
Yeah.
So it's been through a lot of different phases, right? And it's interesting as well because as a property, it was super hot for a long time. We obviously got the Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy was culminated in the 80s. And then there was almost 20 years where we just literally got nothing except for comic books and video games, essentially. And people were like dying to get back into this world. I just remember like there was no way of entering the world outside of these weird, obscure sections of culture, right?
Yeah, dude. And it's different now, right?
But now it's completely different, exactly.
But it was that way. And some of the stories I kind of unearthed, this is a really nerdy topic, but as we were doing the research for this, which basically the main topic, I don't even know if I said it really completely, but we're picking the ones we'd have liked to see to completion, right? We've each picked a couple.
Cancelled Star Wars video games that we never got to play. I'll just copy and paste that back in earlier. Just for context, we're only doing a few here. We're only going to do a couple each and just sort of like talk about a couple of other ones. Do you want to then give me your first Star Wars video game that you never got to play that wanted to?
Sure. The first one that I really, really wanted to play was Atari's Return of the Jedi Ewok Adventure. No, I'm just kidding. That was like, if you look this up, this is one of the most dude, it's one of the most ridiculous looking games.
Awful.
You basically play a Ewok in a glider, but it looks like a paper airplane.
It's in that phase of gaming where everything's 2D and sort of like it thinks it's better than Pong, but nothing was better than Pong in those days.
No.
It's like essentially as bad as that ET game. Do you remember the one that got buried in the desert? Yeah, it's that.
No, I didn't remember that one, but it's bad. Anyway, no, my first one is actually Battle of the Sith Lords.
Yes.
It was a game that, Red Fly, I think they're still around, or they got acquired perhaps. I'm not sure, but Red Fly Studios ported to the Wii. Do you remember the Force Unleashed series? So they ported one of those to the Wii and got like a retainer based on how well it scored, because it actually scored better than like the core systems.
Right.
And so, LucasArts was like, wow, you actually made, people liked this more than they liked the original ones we done on the core systems. Well done, we'll keep you around. And so they kept them on retainer, and they pitched, as a part of that, they pitched, hey, why don't we do like a Darth Maul origin story?
Ooh.
Like that was how this originally started. Like let's follow his gritty, origin, being tortured by Sith Lords and being pushed into the Sith. And they originally were like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Then LucasArts, and as you'll see, I think is a theme with these games. LucasArts a little bit too involved, a little bit too opinionated. Like, no, we have this thing called the Clone Wars coming out. Darth Maul is actually making an appearance, so we wanted to tie into that. Like, so we're gonna do that. So like, but by the way, we can't tell you what that's about because we don't want it to be leaked. So just make a game without knowing anything about what you're making. So it was actually never really clear what this game. But if you go look at the videos, it's pretty cool. You see like Darth Maul, there's pretty good graphics, looking badass.
Well, the footage they released looks amazing.
Yeah, looking badass, doing Force things, killing people with his double saber.
Yeah, just chopping people up
and
look pretty mature.
Yeah. And as many of you know, like in the prequels, the renowned prequels, he actually dies pretty quickly.
He gets the Captain
And,
Carter.
or at
He
least
gets
we
chopped
thought,
away in half. Spoilers for that
yeah,
movie
he
that
gets
no one's
properly,
seen
yeah,
yet.
he gets properly chopped in half. He, in essence, though, what we find out in the Clone Wars is he's actually not dead, and so they were then told, oh, you're gonna be making a game that follows like what happened in between then and the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And so they're building this game. They actually built something that you, I think, would probably like, because it was inspired by the Batman kind of Arkham Asylum style stealth action, like fear-based attacks, stealth components, and they didn't have much to go on, so they just built this kind of game that they wanted to make because LucasArts didn't share any story.
I love the idea of game, especially video games, giving you the option of being a dark side member. Like the movies, the TV shows are generally going to revolve around at least good guys in some sense of the word. Whereas I love that you get the option in these to be like super evil.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it actually, some of the like concepts of that looked really cool. And then all of a sudden, you know, so they're making these cool levels. They have no idea what they're gonna. They're putting some work into the design. All of a sudden, they get an email. All they'd known at this point was Darth Maul has robot legs because he's cut in half, and he's Darth Maul, right? And so they put all this work in doing that. And then after like months of work, they get like a postscript message like, hey, by the way, Darth Maul has robot legs, but they're spider robot legs. And so they're just like, dude, like, what the fuck? We like, this changes the complete concept of our game. We can't have this spidery, metally guy crawling around doing stealth shit. So like, no, like all our designs are fucked. So they got pretty pissed, you know, rightfully so.
I mean, this is like a theme with this game specifically. So there's a rumor that George Lucas liked the idea of the Darth Maul game.
Oh no, yeah.
Apparently,
I'm getting
jumping on. Oh, you go, man. Sorry,
I'm getting. Well, tell me if I missed it. So they literally got so pissed that they demanded a meeting and like flew out to wherever it was. Is it
the ranch?
Yeah, the ranch. And they literally get a meeting with Lucas actually, because they've been going back and forth. And so naturally, they get fully briefed. Apparently, you can't like do certain things when you talk to. They get this huge brief. You can't do certain things when you talk to him. And so they meet George. They're like barely into their pitch, and George cuts them off. Apparently, notoriously, by playing with a toy. Is this what you heard? So he grabs a Darth Maul toy, and then he grabs this other toy. I think it's Darth Talon, who kind of looks like him, like the same race, and he's like playing with him. Pew, pew, pew. He's like, these guys are friends. They need to be together in this game. Yeah. These guys are super good friends. And they're just like so shocked that like they didn't even get to finish their pitch after working on this game for a year. And he just starts playing with toys as his answer to what the plot needs to be.
Well, the interesting part is that she was in the canon hundreds of years after Darth Maul.
Yeah. So they don't say anything, and they go home and they're like, we have to be the ones to tell Lucas that in his own canon he's fucked this up, because there's no way for them to have met, because he's out there unless Darth Maul is 200 years old.
What a weird way for a video game to go.
Yeah, and so he's just like, well, fuck it, just clone him. It's a clone of Darth Maul.
Oh my God.
But anyway,
classic.
So they, they go back. I think apparently he also said Darth Maul needs to be like Sonny from The Godfather. And it's just like, what are you on about, mate?
Man, that's so interesting. Look, I'd love to know a little bit, just a quick touch on why are you so gutted that this game never actually happened? What was the main thing for you?
Just to play as an evil guy. And he looks pretty menacing.
He looks awesome, doesn't he? What an awesome character, and so sorely wasted on a Liam Neeson film.
Yeah. Also very wasted on just all his other appearances. Like, talk about a guy who showed up with a bang, but ever since has just gone out with a whimper. A whimper. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think I'm more just like happy that this game, Disney just canceled that shit, because like at this, I know I'm saying I want to play it, but the way that George was taking it, they didn't seem to be having much say. I was more into the concept that they had in its original form.
I think the original concept's more interesting than what they could have been allowed to do. But that's a really cool one. I like that game a lot. My first one goes a different direction. Yes. My first one is, we were talking this is bringing two of our conversations together. This is perfect. We were talking a minute ago about the Battlefront games. So the OG ones, the original, everyone's favorite Battlefronts 1 and specifically 2. We almost got
2, you could literally fly into like space stations and shit, right? That's
it's amazing. So they're like these first and third person shooter games. Obviously based on the franchise. The original 2 had slightly different stories. I mean, you know what they're like now. They're essentially just big PvP games where there's hundreds of people playing.
Yeah.
Whereas in the original games, they focused on different characters, and it was really interesting. We almost got a third title. Now, the third title was pretty much guaranteed to be same, but different. But the game I want to talk about is the fourth Battlefront game. Now, weird to talk about a game that we didn't even get. It's a sequel to a sequel we didn't even get. But this one, it just find it so interesting. So in 2018, a collection of concept art surfaced, which was allegedly, there's a big allegedly here. So like, we don't know it's true, but like it's supposed to be commissioned for a fourth Battlefront game in those original titles. Now, when we talk about the titles, I said before, it's just kind of running around third first person shooting. But for this game, these commissions that they'd been asked to do were for crazy, weird versions of all the characters you know and love from Star Wars. So just to go through a couple, just really scratching the surface here, you had Jedi and Evil Leia. Evil Leia looks badass, by the way. Do any of you guys remember General Grievous from the prequels? Yeah. The dude with the 4 lightsabers and the hello there.
The motor lightsaber hands.
Exactly.
Whatever, yeah.
There was a version of him pre-roboticized. He actually had his fleshiness to him. We had light side versions of who you were just talking about, Darth Maul, who, by the way, looks gangster as a light side version. There was a light side version of Count Dooku. There was a redeemed Vader who even had some of his robotic shell in place. There was a crazy bad Chewbacca. Like, what on earth? Like, I mean, basically...
the Chewbacca looks pretty cool.
It's just a scar down his face. I mean, it's not a big... But he's a pretty cool looking guy. There's evil versions of Luke, who looks basically like Vader, essentially, with some of the craziest scarring. A dark version of Mace Windu, who is unbelievable. Old and young versions of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Just imagine playing as those guys. Imagine being like an evil Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I just imagine you playing as the old version.
Well, they had both.
Yeah,
they, these sketches.
It's so just, and the old one kind of is like, he looks brutal and really wizened, not like in the movies where he's kind of like a gentle, nice man, like, well, hello there. He looks like he's gonna beat the shit out of you. It's great.
Yeah, he does.
Look, out of those, man, I'd love to know which you would have liked to have played as, because that gave you a lot of cool options there.
I think I would have loved to play as like an evil Obi-Wan, or even just like an evil Leia.
Oh yeah, evil Leia could have been.
To be honest, man, I don't know. That's almost too crazy for me though. Some of this stuff, I'm like, whoa. What is this? Just fan fiction?
Pretty much. But I love that. I love that they're just
in.
going for like massively alternate versions of stuff that we know and all love. Mace Windu though, check him out. He's mine. I would happily go Mace Windu. He looks a complete badass.
No, I saw it. It was pretty cool.
Sick tattoos.
Yeah, face tattoos.
Yeah. He's basically part of a biker gang.
Yeah. But the Battlefront 3 actual release footage, because you're talking about this fake Battlefront 4 that kind of may or may not have existed, looks crazy. It was like Battlefront 2 on crack. It was like you could have these PvP battles. You could fly up, out. You could do little like flight battles. And then you could actually fly into space to go kill a Death Star all in the same level. It was like, wow, this is wow. The scope and scale looked pretty cool.
It looked like an awesome game. Do you want to give me your second game you are most gutted you didn't play as a Star Wars title?
Yeah, this one I actually, really do feel an inclination towards. It's called Ragtag. It's not actually called that. That was just like
code name Ragtag.
Like, yeah, code name. But picture, the team from Assassin's Creed, one of the big, the head of creative at Assassin's Creed, mixing with the head of the creatives at Uncharted, one of the head, production people that made the Uncharted games. They went to Visceral Games, which no longer exists, but this game was canceled in early 2019. The earliest incarnation of the project was actually kind of an open world pirate game, completely like unrelated to Star Wars, where you would just like RPG about taking over other pirate ships and stealing booty and the like. That then became Project Yuma, this open world space game based on the similar concept. This is when they brought in Henning, who came from the Uncharted creative team, And the space game was more linear, but it had these components where you could go out to space and be more RPG like, similar to the pirate one. You could go, take over other spaceships, and it was like that kind of style. And then when Henning got pulled off to put out fires on another project, but when she got back, she kind of realized, hey, I actually don't want to make that game. I want to make something similar to it, but like in a Star Wars setting with like a heist. And that's when it got the proper code name Ragtag.
So what you're saying is it's essentially Uncharted meets Star Wars. Wow. What were the characters supposed to be like?
In order to distinguish it from like other games, because like things like Uncharted, like she just came from it. It kind of sounds similar, but just with Star Wars, they wanted to make it so that you'd be playing like multiple characters of the heist crew. Think about like GTA before GTA 5 came out, where you could play different parts of the heist. Think about that, but with the Star Wars setting. But the actual story, because it is a linear kind of story, or it was envisioned to be, because it doesn't exist, was a guy codenamed Dodger. He's the main character.
Dodger Boone, by the way, the best name in Star Wars.
Is that his last name, Boone?
Dodger Boone.
I didn't know that. He's the main character. He's from the planet Alderaan, the one that gets blown up right in A New Hope. So this is set in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And he comes from the Outer Rim in an attempt to avoid. He goes to the Outer Rim in an attempt to avoid being kind of drafted by the Imperials. Mm-hmm. He's fled before Alderaan's destruction, but then kind of when it is destroyed, kind of obviously is not a big fan of the Empire and is fleeing them.
Yeah, that's a nice way to understate it. I don't like you guys.
He's working on Tatooine. He's doing jobs under Jabba the Hutt. There's all these heist missions. He's kind of working in the criminal underworld with like his crew who you can switch between. He has kind of this light grapple whip thingy that in combination with his blaster is your combat, which is similar to like almost like an not Assassin's Creed, a God of War style component, which I thought you might be keen on. But the really cool part about it was like the concept. It had like a really, really big ambition to be all these different things, right? To have this heist, all the stuff that later kind of got done really well in award-winning games. Like, for instance, as I already mentioned, GTA, the whole different heists and playing different characters with different skills, but also the concept of like having this like linear game, but it had like unlinear paths to getting to an outcome. So like they described a scenario where they were in a Death Star, and like you could just like psychologically mess with these stormtroopers. It would put people on alert, and that would change different ways you could finish the level.
Sounds like Metal Gear Solid.
Kind of like Deathloop. There's like 5 different ways you could accomplish the same goal. So like had high replayability was their goal. So it was a lot of like stuff that was before its time. We really only got to see one little like intro still to this game at E3 in 2016, and it, for being like a 30-second clip, looks super cool.
Yeah.
And I could tell, I was like, this would be a game I would have played. But
yeah, I love the sound of this game. I mean, like, I did a bit of reading on this for myself actually in the background, and just looking at like the actual output for the game, it doesn't look like a lot was actually made. So like we got that little teaser, and that's pretty much it. We found out nothing really about it except for like these key elements. So it almost sounds like they spent more time trying to create the idea of what the game they wanted to do was, rather than actually making a video game.
Well, I think I was going to say what went wrong is exactly that. But I think that to be fair, she's come out and been quoted as saying, hey, there's a lot there that just never saw the light of day because of whatever reason. Like I think they had like 3 full levels, and that was like as far as they got eventually. And it wasn't like this coherent storyline, nor was it like all the characters that they wanted, but they had a couple level sketches where they were like, hey, here's what we want it to be. One of them will be a train heist, one of them will be like a spaceship heist, and one of them will be like a battle in Jabba the Hutt's underworld.
So very, very Uncharted.
Yeah, exactly. And so the feedback was a lot of people were like, this is too much like Uncharted. Like you got to change it up. But what happened, like what went wrong, goes to show if you don't have good bosses, it's just as important to manage up as it is manage down, because the EA forced them to use an engine to build in the game that was built for an FPS. It was built for Battlefield, I think at that time, Hardline. So there was just a bunch of stuff that like took them a year to just build basic componentry that if they had used a kind of a different engine that was more suited for an
For
RPG,
sure.
they wouldn't have had to build around these gaps. So that put them back, and doesn't help.
But the
things.
idea behind this game is so
Um,
interesting. Like I just couldn't
Yeah.
imagine it being so much fun. Like I mean, you get a little bit of it in Jedi Fallen Order, I think it is, where you get some of the traversal elements that could have easily fallen into this. I just love the idea of being like a non-Jedi dude in a world full of Jedis. And that sounds really stupid, but like imagine you're in the vicinity of someone who's a Force wielder and you've got to try and avoid them, even though like they know there's a presence there, and you've got to try and sneak around or like parkour like up the side of a building to get away from it. It's so interesting. Parkour.
Now it's funny you mentioned that, because apparently EA, got pretty far along into it, and they're like, guys, like, this is not good. We don't really agree with what you're
Really?
doing. Market research says if there's a Star Wars game, it needs to have lightsabers in the Force, and you don't have any of
Well,
that.
interestingly,
And so
my second
They're giving him a
game
bunch of shit for that.
might say differently. So, my
Yeah.
second game is a game which, in an interestingly similar twist, is a game called Star Wars 1313. And this is one that pretty much all of the fan base who actually like Star Wars still, who play Star Wars games, are like super gutted that it never came out. They released a trailer in 2012 at E3, and jaws were hitting the floor. Now, if you imagine all the things you just described, except way fucking cooler, this is a game that took all the awesome looking elements of like an Uncharted and whipped them up in this crazy visage of like the Uncharted with sort of Gears of War cover shooter action. And you were in like the seedy underbelly of Coruscant, and you're effectively supposed to play part of the game as Boba Fett. Like this incredible game that everybody's gutted never came out. Like with all
this
the
one
elements,
looked way more developed.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like the Amy Hennig
Yeah.
one, it talked about being an Uncharted type of game, and we never really saw anything. Whereas this, when you see the trailer, man, it holds up today. It looks insane. Look, this was, like I say, it was a gem, and it just never happened. But it was in development from LucasArts, had various exotic weapons, so I don't even know what that means. But like you could utilize it.
But you're down to find out.
Yeah, exactly. In the undercover crime world to like find conspiracies. You were fighting your way through to try and get out of 1313. It was supposed to emphasize fast-paced combat. Now, imagine being a non-Force user in that environment. Like, I think that would be so interesting. You're not going to get Jedis all over the underbelly of bloody Coruscant, except for that one time when Ewan McGregor was there.
Yeah. It sounds like Rogue One.
Yeah, it really does. And like that's the most interesting part about these games is you can have Force users in them, but it's good to have them not as the main characters sometimes. And I think Rogue One really showed that. I know a lot of people gave it maybe not the best reviews at times. That's my favorite of the recent Star Wars films. It's insane. But look, shortly after Lucasfilm or Lucas Division, whatever you call it, announced a sale to Disney, the game essentially lost momentum and was eventually scrapped. And like you can tell by my tone, like I am literally gutted about this. It's all the things I love in a video game. What do you think?
No, it did look pretty fun. It looked like Gearsy this one actually did look like Uncharted.
Oh man,
He's like falling out of something as it's
Yeah,
falling apart.
just a set scene from Uncharted.
Yeah. But I would have played it for sure. Looked good. Looked cool.
Well, do you have any special shout outs? So you've already called out the Ewok's game.
Yeah. What do you mean? My Ewok adventure. There was another one. There was like a Dark Squadron, which was canceled for Chewbacca, which was canceled
gonna
because
say.
well, that's the funny part. All these games were canceled because another Star Wars game came that needed to be made, and then that one got canceled, and just none of them get made.
My favorite bit about the Chewbacca first person shooter is that it was the reason why a different game was cancelled. But apparently George Lucas just was like, no, he's a side character. Imagine you put all your time and effort in and some dude who's lost touch with reality just comes down and goes, no.
Yeah, I'd be so frustrated. I would be so frustrated if you just do all this work and someone's like, nah, dude, he's a side character. It's like, well, you could have told me that.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I just put all this effort into developing a fucking entire video game. Like, now there was another one, Star Wars Imperial Commando, looked pretty cool. You can like kind of command your different troops. There was another one that was like almost like a Call of Duty style Star Wars game. There's been a bunch, man. It's crazy how many games got really, really built, just not shipped.
If you just scratch under the surface a little bit, you find so many of these games. Look, what we would love to know, guys, is which of these Star Wars games are you most gutted about? Or which is the favorite that you actually got to play? I think my favorite, probably over the last, 10 years, was Force Unleashed. What an amazing game. Get to choose between light and dark side. Ah, man, like it had everything. It had RPG elements. Wow, unreal. But yeah, let us know at Podcast Assemble on Instagram. We do have some correspondence this week, so thank you everyone for hitting us up. Now, last week I threw out there to the friends of the show. I said, "Hey guys, give me some TV shows to watch. What do you recommend? I'm in a bit of a rut right now." And thank you everyone who did message. And we had a message from friend of the show, Bertie, who said, "Why don't you finally get round to The Expanse?" I'm pretty sure this is one you've recommended to me a bunch of times. He did say,
Go on, Birdie.
he did admit that it's not a strong start. And I mean, like I watched one episode and it was a bit shit. I'm not gonna lie, it was terrible.
I've told you the same thing because it started on Sci-Fi.
It's hard to watch
and
though. A first season of bad TV. You've got to admit that.
I wouldn't say it's bad TV. It's just not as good as it could have been. And if you haven't read the books, you're not you don't care as much to push through.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because you're not tied to it.
Well, we had another piece of correspondence. Thank you, friend of the show, Bertie. And if there are any other recommendations, hit me up. I would really love to hear them. We had friend of the show, Ben, who messaged in. He said he had stayed away from listening to the pod just for a week because he didn't want to have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness ruined for him.
Fair.
He said that he really enjoyed it. Ben is a big MCU fan. He said he really enjoyed it. But the funny thing is, it is definitely not a kid's movie. I think we agreed with that, right?
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with that, dude.
Yeah, well, I was reading about it this week.
Okay with that.
They really pushed the envelope with how far they could take a PG-13 movie.
I'm sure they did. They made her covered in oil instead of blood because it was like she was killing Iron Man suits, but it looked like blood.
It did. I mean, they were close. Yeah. They were right on the borderline. And final piece of correspondence this week. We ask for memes every week. We love it when you guys send us memes. Thank you. For everyone who has seen the new Thor Love and Thunder trailer, you'll know that there's a really, really fantastic scene where Peter Quill is giving a really rousing speech to his troops, talking about taking in the people you love. And Thor's just trying to pop his head in there, just trying to interrupt the flow. And a friend of the show, Chris, this week sent us a meme of that where it was Peter Quill doing his speech, except he says, "Finally have time to play and enjoy a multiplayer game." And then it's the Guardians in the background. It says, "All my friends waiting in the lobby." And then Thor popping his head in is just 45 gigabyte update.
45 gigabyte update.
Trying to break the flow.
2 days later.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
We're gonna put that on our Instagram, guys, so you guys can enjoy it as much as we did. What a lovely meme. Send us memes, guys. DL, I've said it a bunch of times, but where can they find us?
Oh, they can find us at the podcastassemble@gmail.com or podcastassemble on Instagram.
Yes.
If you find us, send us a meme, tag us and stuff. We'll talk about it if it's cool.
Only if it's cool, man. We don't talk about all memes. Bloody hell.
You could give us a review on whatever podcasting streaming provider you're listening to this on.
You can do it in Spotify now. Apparently, it's easy.
Is it?
Apparently so.
I haven't reviewed anything on Spotify. I guess I'll start with my own podcast. Why not? So yeah, I guess from there, check out our Insta. Thank you, Lockie, for all the good work you do. Tommy, it's been good talking to you. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you, DL.
Thank you, Tommy.
Tally ho.
Gators.